Hey everybody, happy day after Thanksgiving. It's Kate Richburg and I'm live. It's Free Tip Friday time. It's great to see everybody. But you know what I can't see? I can't see your comments. So I am going to go I'm going to walk around the office. Here I am. We're going Steadicam today. Hi Drea. Hi everybody. Good morning. Oh, I can see comments. There we go. I am also, yes, Turkey Hangover Day is right. I'm going solo today because everybody is super busy running around and filling orders and answering your questions. And so we're going to do a little bit of a little more casual Free Tip Friday today. And I'm going to adjust my fly on the wall. Yes, exactly. Hi, Art. Hi, everybody. Well, it's great to see you all. I'm gonna try and arrange my little area here. That's a little bright. So there we go. Looks better. Great. Hi, Carol. Hi, everybody. There's Donna. Oh, it's great. Great to see you guys. Today, what we're gonna do, you can see, there we go, it's a little bit better, that background. I'm here at the bead table with all of you guys. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I'm doing this on my phone, not our regular camera, so it's a little bit different today. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. But we've had, oh good, I see some hearts. It's great, and I appreciate all of those hearts and all of those shares and all of those hellos. We really, really appreciate it. Well, it's kind of a crazy day, like I said here, so I thought today what we would do, and I've had questions about this several times, is about bead sizes and thread sizes and how they relate to each other and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought it would be a really kind of a good sort of casual Free Tip Friday today to talk a little bit about that. And I'll show you guys kind of how I measure beads, how I, take a look and see which sizes are relative to each other. Hi Bonnie, it's good to see you. Great to have you here. So I'm going to come over to the table here and flip this around so you guys can see. Okay, and I hope you guys can see pretty well because again, I'm on my phone. Drea is on the other side doing some moderating as well. So between the two of us, we should be able to answer some questions pretty well. And I can see your questions here, so we're in pretty good shape. So bear with me here while we go through this. Okay. So, size-wise, if you're like me, you have your beads kind of in a jumble, right? And I've got some beads jumbled up over there. And you can even see on the table over here, this is kind of how we store some of our, it's very fancy, isn't it? Very fancy. How we store some of our leftover beads and stuff like that. We're doing things by color and stuff there. And we've got, you can see our Chinese knotting cord in a bin over there. So sometimes when we're working with things, we don't always have everything marked. So it's a good thing to know how to measure your beads. All right, so we're going to start with that first. And this is something that Janice and I, a tool that both of us have really used a lot over the years. This is a millimeter gauge. And if you don't have a millimeter gauge, and we're going to get some, we used to sell them in our brick and mortar way back in the day, but we're adding these back into the product mix for 2018 because it's a really important tool. Really, really important tool. A chart of the common threads in millimeter. Sure, Christine, send it on over to me. That'd be great. Kate at Bead Shop. and I will be glad to share that out. Thank you for that generous offer. That's great. Threads in millimeter for comparison. You can also find all of our threads on our Stittionary in our projects on beadshop.com. If you go to projects all the way over to the right hand side up on the navigation bar, hit projects and hit skill builders, and you'll see that Stittionary, which is a great resource for thread. But Kristen, I can't wait to see yours as well. So this millimeter gauge is a really handy tool, and I'm going to bring it up close so you guys can see it. Now closed, it looks like this, okay? And can you see here on this side we've got inches, and this side we have millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to get a bead that you guys all know the size of. This is an 8 millimeter. Let me get one that's not flat on the top. There we go. This is an 8 millimeter, and if I measure, when I measure a round bead, I measure hole to hole, and I'm going to come in, and can you see that line? I darkened it for you. That line lines up, it's actually lines up just below the 8, but maybe almost about, maybe if we were really using a digital caliper, that would give us about 8.25, right? So that is, we go from 0, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5 millimeters, 6, 7, and 8. So this is an 8 millimeter bead, okay? Let me get a 6 millimeter bead. It's a little bit smaller. Okay, here's 6 mil. And can you see here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 mil. And if you can see, it'll also, what I like about the millimeter gauge is, I'm going to put this little guy right here. So you can kind of see how it relates to inches, because this side is inches. 1, 2, 3. So that's about, it's almost, sorry, I'm not in the thing. This is almost equal to about 1/4 inch. Can you see that? Because on this side it shows us 6 millimeters. That's 1/8 of an inch right there. So that's 1/4 inch, just above that 1/4 inch there. So you can kind of see how it relatively, how they, the inches and the millimeters are relative to each other. Does that make sense? Okay. So millimeters on that side, inches on that side. It's super handy. Okay. So let's take a look now at another handy tool that you might have just to get a visual on the millimeters of beads. If there are any knitters out there, I bet that you guys have a knitting needle gauge. And our viewer, our buddy Jackie, gave us this idea, reminded me about a knitting gauge, knitting needle gauge. And can you see in millimeters, see how this knitting gauge says millimeter sizes, knitting needle sizes, and crochet hook sizes? Well, millimeter sizes, look at how that, if I go up to 4 millimeter right there, that would be equal to a 4 millimeter bead, right? So I'm going to grab a 4 millimeter bead, which is this guy, and I'm going to pop it right in there. Can you see how that 4 millimeter, you can kind of visualize that, right? So let's go ahead and put a 6 millimeter bead in this gauge, or in this tool. Here's our 6 mil, and I'm going to pop it right there. Okay. Now let's do an 8 mil, and that 8 millimeter is there. So can you guys see how 4, 6, and 8 millimeter beads kind of relate to one another? Does that make sense? Then if we have a 10 millimeter bead, I've got one here, I put it aside here somewhere. Our 10 mil. That 10 mil fits right there. So you can see, I mean, it's not an exact science, but it does help you kind of visualize what the difference is between a 4 millimeter all the way over to the left there and a 10 millimeter all the way over to the right there, okay? So I think, you know, it's a good little, I don't know, good little visual, right? Then what it also has, what I think is super also handy, see how there's a little opening there that has it says inches, and there's a little slot there? This is really a cool way to also figure out how many beads there are in an inch, right? Good morning, Emily Miller. I see you over there. I miss you on Facebook Live, but I'll see you on Wednesday. I hope you're having a good day off. I think you're off today. I think you are. Let me turn this and see. So there's my inch, and if I wanted to figure out how many beads I had to the inch, all right, let's go ahead and just lay them in there. And sometimes that can be really handy, especially if you're designing a piece and you're like, I don't know how many beads I'm gonna need. Come on, behave there. So this looks like, I'm gonna use my awl so you guys can see. You can see, you could also string these on a piece of thread, but in 6 millimeter, it actually looks like there's about 4 beads to an inch. Can you see that? Let me see if I can get in there a little tighter. There we go. 4 millimeter beads. Okay. Or 4 6 millimeter beads to an inch. Okay. And Angela, this is, I'll tell you what it's called. This is just a knitting gauge. So if any of you are knitters out there, you can see, you can get these just at your local craft store, and they look at they have all different kinds of knitting gauges, but this is one, the Susan Bates kind. This is one that you'll see out there, and again, it has the millimeter sizes. That's up there at the top, and then it has the inch marks there, and then more inch marks there. Yeah, and you're right, Ginger, I tried to lay these hole to hole, but you can lay them in a, you know, string them up on a little piece of soft flex or whatever, and they'll stay in line for you. But it really, it's a handy dandy tool for sure. Okay. So let me. Oh, thanks, Kim. It may be that I was holding my phone and covering up the speaker there. Sorry about that. So that's the knitting millimeter gauge and the sliding millimeter gauge. That's these guys. Super handy. Okay. We also have, you can grab your little ruler. We love these rulers. I have this always on my desk, and this has inches on one side here and millimeters on the other. And you know, in the bead world, most of our measurements happen in millimeters, and those of us in the US, we usually measure things in inches, so we're not as familiar with millimeters, centimeters, etc. as they might be in Europe or other places that use the metric system. But you can see also with this, let me get that out of the way, move that stuff over there so you guys can really see. So like if I had a bead, let's say that was 10 millimeters. Can you see that? I put my little post-it note here at 10 millimeters. 4, 6, 8, 10. You can see here, 1, 2, we're just 10 millimeters, and I'll put it here at that 1/4 inch. 10 millimeters is just slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch. It's more like about 3/8 of an inch there. Okay, so the ruler, especially with inches and with millimeters on one side or the other, kind of helps you visualize and start to get an idea of, oh, well, 10 millimeters, it's about 3/8 of an inch. So you can kind of work with that in the measurement that's familiar to you. Okay, yeah, this ruler is a super handy dandy little guy. We have these, of course, in the shop as well. Okay, so now let's take a look at wire gauges. Okay, I made myself, you guys have seen this little tool before, but I've made this handy dandy little tool that I use to check hole sizes in beads. There's Janice. Good morning, Janice. And hole sizes, you can see here, I've marked them. This is 26 gauge, 24 gauge, 22, 20, 18, and then we have 16 gauge here. I'm going to need to add some 14 gauge too, because that's a wire that we're also going to be using here a lot at beadshop.com. Okay, so here's let's just get our friend that 6 millimeter bead back. You can see there's that hole size. You can also just check, like if I were wire wrapping this, let's see what 22 gauge looks like in this hole. Okay, 22 gauge, a nice fit for that, right? Nice fit for that hole, large enough so that the wire moves around, but not so tight that it doesn't fit well. Oh, good. I'm glad, Kim. Yeah, this is a tool that I use a lot. Let's check this 20 gauge and see how this 20 gauge. The 20 gauge also fits nicely on these semi-precious. So if you're doing some wire wrapping that you want to be a little more substantial, you can just go ahead and test out your beads that way. Let's test it with, I pulled some of these faceted rondelles. There's that. And the 20 gauge also fits in there as well. Now, a lot of times bead holes, you guys, are larger than you might think they are, especially on these, on the semi-precious. They work really nicely. If you're wire wrapping, a 20 gauge is a nice size for that, as well as 22 works nicely. Where you sometimes get, oh, all right, thanks, JP. It was great to see you. Thanks for popping in. Let me pull a freshwater pearl. Okay, freshwater pearls, we had a little bit of a chat on Wednesday during the Zen of Stringing episode of Janice's. And someone asked about reaming pearls, and Janice was saying, well, it's not very zen to ream those pearls. But if you're wire wrapping, usually, here's the 24 gauge. I wire wrap mostly freshwater pearl with that 24 gauge. 24 gauge wire is the size. 22, if I try to pop that 22 gauge, see, in that freshwater pearl, just doesn't work, right? Even though this is a big pearl. And that's one of the things, you know, when people, sometimes they call and we chat on the phone about what threads and stuff they're looking for, and people say, oh, well, I have beads that are big, you know, oh, I'm working with 6 millimeter beads or 8 millimeter beads or whatever. It's not really the size of the bead, because this is about a 7 millimeter pearl. It's really about the size of the hole of the bead, right? Hole sizes can really vary, especially in pearls, semi-precious, things like that, the faceted, really fine semi-precious. Those holes are much, much smaller. Like you can see, that 24 gauge fits perfectly there. But with that same pearl on 22 gauge, just won't fit. So having this little gauge here really helps you to figure out which wire goes in what. Now, let's take a look at threads, okay? And I want you guys to shout out if I'm not answering a thread question that you might have. But I think kind of the easiest way to convey about thread is to just kind of demonstrate what goes on what. But first, I want to talk about needles. And can you guys see these okay? Maybe if I pull the camera up a little more towards me, if I can bend this down just a little bit more, let me see. There we go. That's a pretty good surface. Can you guys see okay there? Let's talk about the needles that we have. Now, alrighty, good luck on Black Friday. Be safe, and we'll see you next week. So this is a big eye needle, you guys, and big eye needles are great for passing large numbers of threads through a bead that has a big hole. So let's say that I wanted to pass a bunch of cord, like this is the 1 millimeter cotton cord. Okay, now cotton cord, let's say that I wanted to pass cotton cord a bunch through, this is that roller bead that has a big hole. Okay, see how I can just do that with the big hole, with the big eye needle? And especially, let's say if I had several strands of this, maybe I had this strand and maybe this strand. My big eye needle is a real go-to for me, even like, let's say this 3 millimeter. Okay, like that. Let's say that we've got all of this stuff to pass through. Okay, that's just what I was going to say, Drea. That's what I do with thread, with hole sizes. I figure out what bead gauge or what wire gauge it's equal to. Like this, I can see here, this is probably equal to about a 10 gauge. I just know that from being a wire guru, right? So if I were to Google 10 gauge equal to what millimeter size, that size would come right up. So see how maybe this 2 millimeter, that 2 millimeter cord's a little bit big for it. So I'll take that down, take that out. But you can see the cords, they have to bend over, but it just makes it easy to pull onto right through beads that have big holes. Okay, so something like, let's say, let me put this down for a second. You guys remember Wednesday's Zen of stringing? If we had to, let me grab this because it's sitting just right here. You guys remember Janice's piece that she did? Like, let's say that I was passing all of those threads, all of this Ceylon through this bead that had the large hole. That big eye needle, that's the one I'd reach for. Okay? It makes it really easy and fast so you're not struggling with getting those threads through. Let's take a look at another needle we've got. So that's the big eye. Here is the flexible eye needle. And hey, you guys in the filling room, could I have a collapsible eye needle too? Package, somebody rescue me, because I forgot to grab one. Yeah, I've got it. It's okay. Thank you, thank you. So these are the collapsible eye needles, and these are the flexible eye. Can you guys see the difference? The collapsible eye, I'm going to bring it right up close. If you guys remember in Facebook Live on Wednesday, Janice was using these when she was stringing her individual bead strands. And can you see how there's a little twist? There's a little, it's hard to see, that little loop right there, that grabs onto your thread so the needle stays onto the thread. So that's the collapsible eye. This flexible eye, which is right here. Hey Angela, what's up? This flexible eye, you can see, is a really much thinner needle. And this can kind of give people trouble sometimes figuring out which one of these to use when. So I want to show you. Okay. I'm going to get our friends the pearls back, because this is the question I get the most on that. So here's my freshwater pearls. Okay, they're sitting right there. Now, this, oh yeah, good advice, Angela. Angela, you might have lost us. Close the, oh, okay, just making sure. Hey, you guys, or should I say, hey, kids? I say that a lot too. For pearls, let me get, oh, terrific. Thanks, Christine. A lot of you, when you're stringing poetry, this is a question I get a lot. It's like, okay, I'm having trouble getting my needle through a doubled strand of thread. So here is my my collapsible eye needle. Okay, I'm gonna just thread. Let me clip this away so I've got a nice clean end. There we go. And let me get my needle here. Now whenever I string, like I'm stringing on poetry or I'm pearl knotting or whatever, I'm always using a doubled strand. But see how that little loop that I was talking about earlier, see how that really hangs onto your thread? Can you see it? It's not going to fall off, right? So I'm going to grab that pearl, slide this on, and sometimes, see, these are heavier needles. See that? That pearl just doesn't want to go on there. Okay? Not the right needle for it. So let's take this off. I'm going to clip this away. And let's get your friend and mine the flexible eye. And can you see how fine that needle is? Right? Yeah. Oh, do we? Great, Drea. I'm sure we do. Sometimes though, people, I get calls and people are like, hey, how come this needle doesn't fit? And I go, tell me what wire needle you're using. And sometimes that's the issue. Okay. So here's this. Let me put this pearl in. And then, and you can see there's no little twist on there. The needle is just free to go. So now you've got to, but you've got to have the courage of your convictions, because the first bead that you put on, that eye of the needle, can you see it's still pretty big, right? But that flexes down, and see that? And see how with the first bead you put on, it just kind of shrinks down a little bit, and now you're able to get that thread on there, or that bead on that thread. And can you see how nice and not loose, but how the nice movement that this pearl has on there? I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little more thread down here. So yeah, when in doubt, this is like my #1 question that I answer on the phone for a lot of you is, how come I can't use this for poetry? But make sure that you're using the flexible, not the collapsible eye. So there's that. And see how that's doubled? And we can just tie a little knot there. Always, always, when you're tying these knots, when we're pearl knotting, just like Emily showed, just how Janice shows, just how I show, we want to do that doubled thread. But this is micro Ceylon. Yes, there it is, micro Ceylon. Okay, and it's perfect for that pearl knotting, and it gives you just the right size hole. So Angela, it doesn't make the needle obsolete. I'll show you. I'll cut this away and I'll show you what I do. If you've been using this needle and the needle is still nice and straight, a lot of times my needles get a little twisted as I'm doing this, but look what I have here, Emily's favorite tool, the awl. I just put it right into the eye of the needle, and there it is, ready to go. So you mentioned Tuff cord #1, Drea. That's a great intro to showing you how that Tuff cord number 1 also works. And you can see that micro Ceylon, I've got micro Ceylon right here on the bottom, and Tuff cord number 1 on the top. Okay, they're about the same size. So let's check it, shall we, with the pearl? Shall we check it? I'm going to get this micro Ceylon, I'm sorry, the Tuff cord 1. Give it a clip, and let's get another one of those pearls and see if they go on, shall we? Again, doubled over. Here's my pearl. That eye of the needle that I opened up, we're just going to pull this back down, tug it like you mean it, and you can see that Tuff cord number 1 fits just perfectly. I'm going to tie a loop on the end, or a knot rather on the end, and let's tie a little pearl knot. Thanks, Trish. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. Oh, Debbie, you'll be able to watch it later. Thanks for joining in. Let's see what this looks like. There we go. A nice knot there. Nice. Let me put one more on so you can see that knot in between the 2 beads. There we go. Just like so. Okay. So we've got our micro Ceylon and our Tuff 1. Okay. Let's move up to regular Ceylon, which I've got right here. And you can see the regular Ceylon. It's a little thicker, all right? But I've also got in between there, it's a little bit thicker than Tuff 1, a little bit smaller than fine Ceylon. Let me just cut this little knot so I can get this open. Tuff cord 2 at the top, regular Ceylon here at the bottom. Okay, can we see that okay? Hopefully it's not too dark. I got some threads that were a little dark. There we go, that's a little bit better. Okay, so let's check the Tuff 2, okay, and see if it fits through pearls. We get this. I'm going to still use that same needle. I'm going to cut it off over there from my Tuff 1. Let's keep opening it up. Gita, you're a linking machine today. Well, linking machine every day. Opening that up. Let's get that Tuff 2. The Tuff 2 also, you guys, is a little more wiry. Right? It's not quite as supple as the Ceylon, but it's still okay. There's my knot. Let's see if I can get my pearls on. That same pearl. It's a little tighter. Yeah, and we sure can, Angela. This will be kind of my last pearl thing here. This Tuff 2 fits with the pearls, but it's a little bit tighter. But I would still use it, especially if I wanted my knots to be a little bit bigger. Let me tie that knot there. Okay, nice size knot. Let me go one more here. Are there any rules about using a thicker thread or cord for stability or design considerations? Let me tell you, Angela, for pearl knotting, my big consideration is that I use a cord that I can use doubled. Okay, and for any necklace like this, really, that's a single strand, I want to use 2 strands. Okay, because if one strand goes, if one strand is compromised in some way, that second strand is going to hold it until I notice that it's frayed. Okay, so that's my main consideration. If it's a single strand like this, whether it's knotted or strung, I want a doubled strand. And can you see the knots are a little bit bigger. Here's my Tuff one. I'll just hold the Tuff one. My knots in my Tuff one, you can see, are a little bit smaller, and my knots on the Tuff 2 are a little bit bigger. Okay, so the fine Ceylon and fine weight would be too large for the pearls. It's just too thick. Okay, but I'm going to level up to this one that has with beads that have a little bit of a larger hole, and you can see the difference. Regular Ceylon on the top, fine Ceylon here on the bottom, and then let me also pull out Tuff cord 3. All right, bye Ginger. Bye Ginger. Thanks for joining us. Here's Tuff cord 3. Okay. So Tuff 3 really looks like it comes in right in between fine and regular Ceylon. Okay. And I would say I would use these pretty much interchangeably, this one and the fine. The regular Ceylon, it's a little hard to see, but when it's doubled over, it's going to feel substantially thicker. Okay. Oh, so that's a really good question, Mary Ellen. Are those gadgets worth it for pearl knotting? This is my personal bias of having learned how to pearl knot from Janice and pearl knotted for so many years. I say that the pearl knotting gizmos are more pain and suffering than they're worth. It's all practice. I feel like that knotting tools, any kind of knotting tool, just gets in the way. Okay, but I feel that same way about fancy wire tools, like the wire looper and stuff like that. I say learn how to make really great loops with your round nose plier, and it'll serve you much better in the long run. You can go back and watch, there's quite a few videos we have on knotting, if you go back to Facebook Live, including one that Emily did just a few weeks ago by knotting with the awl. So there's a lot of really great info out there. But that is to say, if you use the pearl knotting tool and you love it, more power to you. I think each their own, but I prefer just knotting with my hands, or it's all practice. Yes, Drea, that is correct. Okay. Yeah, good foundation. That's what I say. And Janice will always say that pearl knotting is the foundation of jewelry design, but I always say wire working is. So, but all of those good foundation points really turn you into a much better stringer. So let's take a look. I'm going to get this fine weight, our fine weight thread here. Hi Robin, how are you? It's good to have you join us. Robin, we miss seeing you. We'll have to get in contact. Robin was one, she made some of our samples in the past, and she's a great stringer, so it's great to have you out. Oh, Gita, you know what, Drea, you and Gita, I have put you like into one person in my mind. It's really funny. So I knew it was Gita, but I probably said Drea. I think it's because you guys are so good on the links. And I feel like you're my support team, that you've got my back on the other side of the computer. So here's a doubled strand. You can see that. A doubled strand of regular, or fine weight, fine Ceylon. Let's pop this up too. This is that 8mm bead we were talking about earlier. See that there? Looks great. Let me tie a knot with this. Yes, practically twins, bead sisters, right? That's right, the Link sisters, exactly. Yeah, no, it was really, yeah, Janice learned from our friend Rita Lee way back in the day, Rita's pearl knotting technique, and it's really great. It's a really great technique. Hi, Kendra. You're at Asilomar. Oh my gosh, we love Asilomar. There in Pacific Grove, California. So beautiful. There we go. You can see that this knot is a little bit... Yep, autocorrect will get you all the time, Art Del Nero. Whoops, sorry, I'm out of frame there. Sorry, you guys. Whoops. Let me put one more here. I know this is going a little bit long. I just have a couple more things to tell you guys, and then we'll bring this to a close. But see there? That's a nice size knot too. And this is fine weight Ceylon. We do love Asilomar, Mom. We do. My mom and I have had several quilt retreats there at Asilomar. We do love it. It's such a beautiful part of California. And let me show you last but not least, regular. So I think, Angela, you also had a question about other like beads with big holes or whatever, right? How would I deal with those? So I'm going to put this through. This is regular Ceylon here. And more here. Oh, thanks, Eileen. It's really nice of you to say. Or type. So let's say that I do have beads that have really big holes and I'm not sure what to do. See how I've brought, this is all regular Ceylon. I just use as many strands as will fit through my bead. So let me tie a knot here, pretending that all 4 of those strands are one. All right. Keeps you out of the mall. Totally, Tammy. Well, working today is keeping me out of the mall. So you can see what a big kind of fat knot I've got going on there. Let's see if, whoops, you know what I didn't do? I didn't even everything out down here. So let me untie this knot. It's the first thing you do when you have all of these multiple threads. You get everything together here like this. There we go. So now everything's nice and even. Now I will tie my knot. Rookie move there, Richburg. There we go. Okay. That's right, Gita. That's right. Spend Black Friday with beadshop.com. You can see, so this doesn't quite, see how that doesn't quite, it's not quite the right size. It's a little too small for that. So I could come in, if I were knotting those, and I'd add maybe another strand. Well, Angela, we don't want to have you refi, so... But we really appreciate all of your support, you guys. You're keeping all of us gainfully employed, which we are very thankful for. So let's get that in. So now I have, instead of 4 strands, I've got 6 strands. So let's bring all of this together. I'm just going to tie another knot here. I won't untie it. There we go. See, my knot's even bigger. So let's take a look and see. And this is greatly exaggerated, right? I mean, I might not want to knot all of these, but you may, I don't know. Oh, good. I'm glad, Angela, that you're having fun. We are too. So that's how I would deal, there we go, with beads that have large holes if I'm knotting. Right? And can you see how those knots, just going to come in and tighten these. Knotting with these short little threads isn't always easy. I like a bit more thread. There we go. Makes it a much nicer knot. And I'll slide one more bead on there so you guys can see how the knot looks in between 2 beads. But there you go. See that? So it just depends on the whole. Hey, Christine! There's my friend Christine! I've known Christine since we were in high school. Oh, it's awesome to have you on. It's great to see you. I miss you. So see that there? It really depends on how many strands you need, or how large the knot that you need fits right in between those beads. I love the big knots too, Margie. I think they really look great in between these guys. Okay. So the last cord I want to show you in relationship to beads is this Chinese knotting cord. We've got the 0.8, the 0.5, and the 0.4. And I really like knotting with this Chinese knotting cord. And the 0.4, and I'm going to hold it up, the 0.4 next to the regular Ceylon. Can you see how the 0.4 Chinese knotting cord is even a little smaller than that regular Ceylon, right? I love it. I love it too, Kim Crawford. I think that people don't use this enough for knotting. I'll be honest. I mean, it has knotting right in the title, right? So let me grab this one. I could use my flexible eye needle on, I think. Just like so. Comes through, or what we like to say CKC sometimes instead of just Chinese knotting cord. But I'll tie a knot here at the very end. And let's say that you were knotting semi-precious beads. Okay? Let me go for these little coins. Again, that hole is big, and that hole will fit. This will work as long as the bead hole that you're using fits like a 20 gauge wire. Okay? This Chinese knotting cord would work, and this is the 0.4 millimeter that I'm using. So this slides on. Yes, much softer, Anna, much softer than the regular Ceylon. And you can see, you can kind of see that. Look at my mess in the background. Doesn't your table start to look like this? See how the Ceylon is kind of curly and stuff, and this Chinese knotting cord. Yeah, the flexible. Here's my collapsible needle. Let me grab it. Where'd the package go? Here it is. Right there. That's the collapsible eye. And then the flexible eye is this guy right here. Okay, so I'm using the collapsible eye with this one. And you can see there's my knot. You could also do poetry with this, especially if you were using, you know, semi-precious beads, right? It would look really, really great, the poetry in this, because macrame looks amazing in it. Look at the size of that knot. Look at how nice that looks. And the colors in Chinese knotting cord, you guys, are so delicious. But I think the 0.4 millimeter Chinese knotting cord, let me throw a 6 millimeter in there. I think the 0.4 millimeter Chinese knotting cord does not get enough love. So there we go. Let's take a look. There's that 6 millimeter bead on there. Okay. So those are all of our threads. Well, not all of them. We've got so many more. But thread, I hope that gives you a pretty good idea about what fits on what. I also had a few of our seed beads here, and with seed beads you can see those sizes. Just take out, you know, your seed bead and see what fits on what wire, and then you can kind of translate that over to your thread. So let me take out these 8/0. This 8/0 I know will fit on a 20 gauge wire. They do snap together. I love that about them. So there we go. So you can see that 8/0 bead fits right on that 20 gauge. So you know that if you were doing that doubled strand, because this hole fits on a 20 gauge wire, this hole fits on a 20 gauge wire, so you know that it fits doubled on that Chinese knotting cord. Okay, let's see with the 11/0. 11/0s have a bigger hole than you think, because they're a tiny little bead with a lot of hole. Poetry is a project coral from beadshop.com. It's a really great one to start with. It's kind of a macrame project that features freshwater pearls. It's kind of a really kind of lovely, elegant, and easy project. If you go to beadshop.com to our projects page and you scroll down, you'll see where poetry is, and it's a great way to mix thread, kind of have a thread forward kind of project with either freshwater pearls or semi-precious beads. Can you see here? Even these 11/0s fit over that collapsible eye needle and onto the 0.4 millimeter Chinese knotting cord doubled. Look at that. Okay, so I urge you, especially now that we're having this crazy sale, our Black Friday Cyber Weekend sales, now is a great time to stock up on some threads so you can make your own little samplers and try things out at home. I hope this was helpful, you guys. It was really fun, and I wouldn't follow the handout. Yes, Sahar, I think, you know, we'll have to double check. I think that we have done some videos on it. I know that Gita, you and Drea are out there looking for it. But we also have on our Facebook Lives, if you go back and check it out, you can see what videos we might have. What Chinese knotting cord with a single strand? For these guys here, for the single strand, Debbie, I might use, if you're using it singled, I might pop up a size and go to the 0.5, because the knot that you tie in just a single strand here, that looks like it's about the right size to go with that. Okay, so that should work fine. Okay. I'm just looking at everybody's little questions here, making sure I've answered everybody. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to turn this guy around. Here we go. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. I went a little long today, but you know, I really wanted to show you guys those needles and the different cord sizes. I mean, we could talk about this all day, right? But I think the lesson learned out of this is grab yourself some thread sizes, make yourself some little samplers like this, right? You can make yourself a little wire sampler, you can make yourself a little thread sampler, and then you can just kind of, you know, test your beads, and soon it'll become second nature to you, right? Well, on Wednesday, Emily will be back with me. I keep wanting to look over here, you guys, but I know the camera's over here, so let me try and look in the camera, okay? On Wednesday, Emily's going to be back with me, and we're going to be making another laddering bracelet project. It's going to be a little more delicate. It's going to be, I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun with it. We use some 11/aughts in it. And it looks like, Drea, see, I'm doing it again, Gita, I would probably go middle of the road with your CKC and start with 0.5 millimeter and then go from there. Unless you wanted to use it doubled over and knotted like I was using, then I would get the 4. Okay, because 0.5 doubled over is a little heavy and probably won't go through those bead holes. Thanks. I'm glad you like that viewpoint. I did too. We're looking at maybe making more of our lives a little bit more in that kind of over-the-shoulder viewpoint, but we're always improving. Okay, well, that should do it for me. You guys have a great holiday weekend. Keep checking those newsletters because there's more good stuff coming out in them all weekend through Cyber Monday, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining me. It's Kate Richburg for beadshop.com. We'll see you guys soon.